This tree's leaves died but did not fall off, and that's a really bad sign. Let's talk about it. This is a Chinese pistache tree that's been in the ground for about 4 years, and it's been thriving until a couple of weeks ago. It looked super solid all spring long, had lots of healthy new leaves, and then suddenly all the leaves wilted and turned brown. Now, leaves turning brown on a tree in the summertime isn't always a worst case scenario. A lot of times they will recover, but in this case, they did not fall off. They clung to the tree, and that's a really, really bad sign. You see, there's 2 terms that I want to teach you about today, and they sound complicated, but they're pretty simple. One is abscission, and the other is marquescence. Now, abscission happens whenever a tree's leaves, fruits, or seeds actually fall off of the tree. So the tree sends a signal to some hormones and enzymes that are at the base of each leaf, and that will cause them to actually fall off of the tree. So these enzymes will eat through the abscission layer and cause the leaves to drop. And this happens to deciduous trees in the fall and what causes the leaves to fall. It also happens to trees when they get stressed in the summertime. They will drop some of their leaves through the abscission process in order to save themselves whenever they feel stressed from drought. So if this tree had simply started shedding some leaves in the summertime, that would just be a sign that it was stressed and needed some more moisture and would be a pretty easy fix. But instead of shedding those leaves through abscission, it's exhibiting what we call marquescence, where it actually holds on to dead leaves. Now, for some trees like oaks and birch trees in the wintertime, you will see marquescence naturally, and it's not a bad sign. But when this happens to a tree like a Chinese pistache in the summertime, the reason why that's a really bad sign is because the tree did not have enough strength to actually send those hormones to the abscission zone to tell the tree to shed these leaves. In other words, the tree wasn't even healthy enough to say, hey, let's drop these leaves to try and save ourselves. The tree just straight up died. And usually when that happens, we're not looking at a tree that has died from a drought scenario. In fact, we've had a lot of moisture and rain this year, so that's definitely not the case for this tree this year. My guess is this tree actually succumbed to a pathogen called cotton root rot. Cotton root rot is a type of fungus that will attack trees' roots, and it can actually coexist with the tree for many years, but at some point it releases a toxin that will cause the tree to die suddenly. Now, if I wanted to confirm this, I could send off some tissue samples to a lab, but I'm not gonna do that, but I will probe around the soil a little bit just to see if I can see any of that cottony growth on the roots. So I'm gonna use this core sampling tool, go right down into the roots and pull out a couple cores just to see what they look like. Didn't get any roots in that one. We'll try again. That smells bad, which is another sign of root rot. Yup. So we're probably looking at a root rot situation here. Just as I thought. So check this out. So here's one of the tree's roots. The soil was pretty soggy, but we've got this nasty phlegm stuff wrapped around one of the roots. So that looks like cotton root rot to me. Once again, I would have to send this off to a lab to confirm, but we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna have to get rid of this tree and plant a new one. Now, if you do have a tree that dies from root rot like this, it's best to not plant another tree in the same spot. You need to pick a spot, if possible, that's 30, 40, 50 feet away to plant your new tree, or you'll have to really dig out a bunch of this soil and plant a tree that's resistant to diseases like cotton root rot.